Yeah. There's just one thing I wanna say. The really real, yo. There's just one thing I wanna say. Thing I wanna say. Thing I wanna say.
Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style. 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 Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Everyone is listening, is going to listen. Before I begin, I got to give all praises, and I do mean all praises to the Creator of all, the Holy One of Israel, the Ancient of Days, Yahweh, his name in Hebrew, which means I am, he is, or calls us to be. And we pay homage to the first begotten Son, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, Christ Jesus in English, which means anointed Savior, anointed salvation. And as our brother Drew puts it in his letter, of the contend for the faith that was once delivered to the saints. Right? With that, I'm trying to also go live on this Clubhouse thing here. This thing is it's not making me do this thing. Let me try it again. Can I go now? All right, so schedule for now. All right. Let me add a co-host here. We had a club. We're going to prove all things, and members only, and making sure everything is straight here. I'm also going to go on Clubhouse and do this. Let me save it and say to start. You keep saying it's being created. What is this thing doing? Okay, I want to start. All right. Let me start it. All right. Start. What is this thing doing? Yeah, start the room. All right. I've started the room. All right. I'm also here on Clubhouse while I'm streaming on StreamYard to my channel. Right. So we're going to see you all going to come on. Let me minimize this right quick. Minimize that because I can't see it. Let me continue here. All right. I want to show my screen right quick that I am trying to go on Clubhouse as well. Share my screen. All right. So we see here I'm also on Clubhouse at the same time. Right. Just wanted to show that right quick. We can come back. Let me minimize that. Stop sharing that. All right. Let me put my camera on briefly. All right. So here we go. Yeah, I'm not trying to hide my face. I got my Israelite shirt on with my menorah underneath. Those who wanted to see. Israelite shirt. Be clearly ready to go. What to do is I'm going to play a video and get some definition and get some scriptures here. This shouldn't be a long class or a long lesson at all whatsoever. Okay. I'm going to turn my camera off and get to this video here. Starting out with this video. So this is Lapsi went forth to sacrifice unto idols. Okay. So we can get more information on that. All right. So I'm going to stop my camera. Okay. Got that. Let me go and share this video. All right. Let me get to this video. We have here. 1 second. Let me come back because I want this entire video to show. All right, come back to the video. Blow this video up. I'm about to play it. All right. I don't know why it's been playing. Look like it's been playing.
Many of the people who suffered under the Romans, it was because you had to be a citizen of the Roman Empire. To fulfill your civic duty, you had to participate in a.
Let me start over right quick.
Many of the people.
So he's going to go off into the people who is under the Roman Empire, right? Coming in from the 1st century, going all the way down into the 2nd century. This is what it was. This is what Nehemiah Gordon is going to detail here. He's going to bring up this word Lapsi, and I'm going to go into it, and we're going to go from there. All right. So let me this all the way up. I think the volume is all the way up. Let me make sure. All right, so everybody can hear this and get it up to the 80. All right.
People who suffered under the Romans, it was.
So, all right. So people who suffered under the Romans, I'm going to play the video, and we're going to go from there. All right.
It was because you had to be a citizen of the Roman Empire. To fulfill your civic duty, you had to participate in a sacrifice to the emperor as a god. And there.
So you see that you had to sacrifice to the emperor as a god when you're in the Roman Empire. To be a Roman citizen, that's what you had to do. Remember, Paul claimed Roman citizenship in the book of Acts. Okay, this was something he would have been required to do. That's why eventually he was hunted down and killed, because he was not doing that. Right.
There was one group of people in the entire empire who were exempt from that, and that was the Jews.
Mm-hmm. So the Jews was exempt from doing that. Remember, Paul was claiming Roman citizenship too as well. Also, he claimed to be a Jew. So him being a Jew, he would be exempt from doing that, right? Because he was a Jew. But if you're not a Jew, then you would go ahead and have to do that, right? And I'm gonna get into all that other stuff, but that shows you there's a conflict between Paul. So what Paul would have done when it came to him pushing that on him, he would claim his Jewish side. But then when he needed some stuff with the Roman citizenship, then he would claim that Roman citizenship side. So he was playing it real smart. That's what Paul was doing. I can continue to play the video.
And why were the Jews exempt? Because the Romans looked at the history. They said, okay, we've got this weird exotic people. They're peculiar. They have this obsession with only one God. It's a God they can't even see. It was strange to the Romans. Mm-hmm. And they said, we'll give a special dispensation to Jews not to worship the emperor as long as they bring a sacrifice in their temple in Jerusalem to their God on behalf of the emperor.
So we see that's what they had to do. So to be exempt, they had to bring an offering to their God on behalf of the king of Caesar. All right. We see this position here, the definition, and so on and so forth. All right. Let me continue the video.
And so the Jews had a special dispensation, and the early Christians, the early followers of Yeshua who were Jewish, had no problem. It was when these Gentiles started to become Christians, started to follow Yeshua, and the Romans said, well, I mean, you're not Jewish. Did you participate in the sacrifice to the emperor? Where is your document? Oh.
So we see now they had to produce a document now that they're sacrificing and following Roman protocol or Roman law, right? So I'm saying this to say that Christians today are talking about how Paul and them going out to non-Israelite Gentile. These non-Israelite will run into this problem right here under the Roman Empire. If there wasn't Israelites, they would have to sacrifice unto idols, and then that would contradict what the whole Christian movement was about. They couldn't have done that. So this is another fact that letting you know they was not going to no non-Israelite, right? So the people they was going to, they didn't have to worry about this. But if what these Christians are saying is correct, these Gentile non-Israelite would run into this problem here under the Roman Empire. They would have to show this. All right, I'm gonna continue the video.
And there came a period in Roman history where you had to have a certificate. And if you wanted to buy, and some people say that's what Revelation is talking about, and certainly in the 2nd and 3rd century that happened, if you wanted to buy or sell, if you wanted to go into the public square and participate in business, you had to be able to show, I'm a good citizen. Where are your papers, right? You're undocumented. Where's your documentation?
Produce your papers.
Produce your papers, right? Papier, bitte, right? Where are your papers? And the paper would say, on such and such a date, I offered the sacrifice to the Emperor Nero. And if you couldn't show those papers, you were an outlaw. You were outside the law, right? You weren't a proper citizen of the Roman Empire. And as we get into the 3rd century, this becomes a huge problem they start to actually enforce this. Originally, it was just like, maybe the guild of a certain city made you show your papers, right? But by the 3rd century, it's a universal thing. It's called the libellus. It's where we get the word libel, right? The libellus originally was a certificate that showed that you had participated in the sacrifices. And it wasn't that because they professed belief in Jesus, it was because they refused to sacrifice participate in an idolatrous sacrifice. That was.
So I want to say this was been around during the 1st century, but they just got to the point where they started to really made it enforcing it, right? But it was probably some also thing going down in the 1st century like that. One of the reasons why they hunted down the apostles and what they was doing, because they were teaching basically against Caesar, that Christ was king and not him. You know what I'm saying? I'm just bringing this out to show you that this was something that a non-Israelite would have definitely ran into from the 1st century and come all the way down to 250 and after that.
The immediate reason, from the perspective of the Romans, that is, right? From their perspective, obviously, if I participate in the sacrifice, I'm denying Jesus, right? But from the perspective of the Romans, this is it's like it would be the equivalent if you say, well, I'm not going to pay my taxes. Why should I? I don't believe in the IRS. I don't believe in the Federal Reserve. Okay, well, the Federal Reserve believes in you, and so does the IRS. So you better play ball. And so these Christians were being persecuted. So persecution became and this is revolutionary in human thought. Persecution became an ideal. If you could say someone was persecuted, they reveled in it. And you have to understand, throughout most of human history, when people were persecuted, when people suffered at the hands of the government, at the hands of the powers that be, whoever they were, it was humiliating. And Christianity turned suffering into a noble thing. A badge of honor. Yes. Now, it's hard for people to understand this because in 2021, when we're recording this in America, if you can say you've suffered, then you're a hero, right? They call it the Persecution Olympics. So if you can say whoever has suffered more is now higher up on the hierarchy. But throughout most of human history, it wasn't like that. If you suffer, it was humiliating. And I'll tell you, I grew up around people who survived. So long story short, if
I paused the video because he started going off into this Holocaust nonsense, which I don't even believe in that kind of stuff happening the way they said it did. You know, I said it wasn't one, but not the way they said it did. So I paused it there, and I'm going down later in the video. So that's why you see the little jump there. All right.
I can make it that way. What they would do is, throughout most of human history, it was humiliating to be persecuted, and Christianity made it into a noble thing. And in this course at Hebrew University, they asked the question, did Judaism have that concept? And if you look in the Tanakh, they argued you don't have the concept of persecution as a noble thing. You definitely have it in the books of the Maccabees, First and Second Maccabees, and then in other literature around that. You have a story about a woman named Hannah and her 7 sons, who she's told she must convert to the pagan religion. Not really convert, she can continue to be a Jew as long as she participates in the sacrifice to Apollo and eats a pig. And if she won't do that, then her 7 sons will be slowly and viciously, one of them was, I think, skinned alive, killed in horrific ways in front of her, and then finally she's executed, and she becomes a hero because of her persecution. And so we have to be careful when we read this verse, and we live in the era of the oppression Olympics, and we live in the post-Christian, the period of, that's after the period of Christian persecution, right? In other words, we've already lived through the period of the libellus, where Christians were being thrown to the lions and dipped in pitch and lit on fire in the for the gladiator events in the Colosseum and whatnot. And so we have to look at this not from the perspective of persecution is this noble, beautiful thing. It brings about martyrdom, and it's essentially the most noble death you could have, right? In the period that this is being taught, persecution on some level is still seen as humiliating. And Yeshua, therefore, is saying something profoundly revolutionary. He's saying, rejoice and be happy when they persecute you.
You got verse 12 already? We can't get out verse 11.
And then in the future episodes, we'll get to 11 and maybe even 12, hopefully. But when he says, blessed are those who are pursued, who are persecuted because of righteousness, you can't look at this through the lens of intersectionality in the oppression Olympics. And you can't even look at it through the lens of the 2nd and 3rd century persecution of the Christians, where according to certainly the Catholicism and the Orthodox Church, you have the saints. The saints were the people who were burned alive at the stake. They were skinned alive, fed to the lions, and they became these noble martyrs. When Yeshua is speaking this to the audience, they know about Hannah and her 7 sons, and they have this idea of suffering and dying for your faith. And I'm going to argue in the plus section that this exists in the Tanakh as well, but it doesn't exist, and it's not as developed as it is in later Christianity. So so in some respects, what he's saying here is profoundly revolutionary.
So I want to stop it right there. So we see clearly here what Christ was doing, what Christ was showing was revolutionary. The teaching, this is according to Nehemiah Gordon. He's not even a believer in Christ as the Messiah. He believes he exists, but not as the Messiah. He's not there yet. But he's saying that this man teaching is revolutionary. What he was teaching back in the 1st century, to say to rejoice when you're persecuted, that was a brand new concept at that time. As he said, persecution was something that was looked at as bad. You was being humiliated when you was persecuted, but suffering for what you believed in. So again, we can see Christ's teaching is revolutionary, according to someone who didn't even believe in him as the Messiah, who is a Tanakh only person, right? So from there, I want to go into the word he brought up, Lapsi. Let me bring up Lapsi now and read through a couple of names here in Lapsi. So let me share my screen again. We're going to go into Lapsi. Okay, here. Lapsi explained. Lapsi Christianity explained, right? In the early Christian church, Lapsi, were apostates who renounced their faith under persecution by Roman authorities. The term referred to those who have lapsed or fallen away from their faith only to return to it later. Right? So what a lapsi is. Continuing, the Decian persecution of 250 AD, which required all citizens of the Roman Empire to publicly sacrifice to traditional gods, created unrest within the church. Christians who submitted to pressure and made public sacrifice were called lapsed or lapsi. Upon completion of sacrifice, individuals received a certificate of sacrifice or libellus, a legal document proving conformity with Roman religion. To avoid this test, many members of the clergy fled, leaving their communities without leadership. In their absence, lay people who had not lapsed, called confessors, filled their leadership role. Upon return to Carthage, Cyprian found these confessors had assumed authority of clergy, especially forgiveness of sins. So these guys was forgiven sins, and they was in a position that they did not earn. Although many confessors willingly relinquished their position of authority upon the clergy's return, some attempted to retain their position. Cyprian called a council in 251 AD to address this problem, the root of which was the status of the lapsi. Confessors tended to accept lapsi back into communion, while the clergy demanded harsher punishment. Cyprian was able to avoid schism by identifying 5 categories of lapsi and assigning penance appropriate to each. Okay, I'm going on down. Classification after 250 AD, Decian persecution. Cyprian of Carthage held a council sometimes after Easter 251 AD, in which lapsi were classified into 5 categories, and these are the sacrificii, those who had actually offered a sacrifice to the idols. Christians that made sacrifice, especially to Roman idols, idols, were only offered absolution on their deathbed. So if they would do something like that, and only absolution was given to them when they was getting ready to get up out of here. Okay, and then you have turai Ficatai. Turai Ficatai. Those who had burned incense on the altar before the statues of the gods. From the Latin Turai Ficere, it means to burn incense. All right, so that's Turai Ficata. And then you have Libella Takai. Libella Takai. Those who had drawn up attestation, libellas, or had by bribing the authorities. All right, so you have certain believers who would have bribed the authorities, cause such certificate to be drawn up for them, representing them as having offered sacrifice without, however, having actually done so. A 2-year sanction was imposed as penance, from Latin libellus, little book, a letter, certificate. That's where that comes from. So you have people that were smart, that they bribed the authorities. They was given a 2-year penance for that. Then you have acti ficentes. Acti ficentes. Those that made false statements or other acts to save their lives. So this one was lying. From the Latin, those doing the acts, right? That's what acti ficentes mean. And then you have traditores. Traditores are those who gave up sacred scriptures, artifacts, and or reveal names of fellow Christians, snitches, in other words. From Latin, tradere, hand over, means to hand over, deliver, betray. This is the source for English word traitor. Okay, this is what this was, right? At Rome, the principle was established that the apostates should not be abandoned, but that they should be exhorted to do penance, so that in case of their being again cited before the authorities, they might atone for their apostasy by remaining steadfast. So there we have that, right? These are the 5 categories that Cyprian had to break down for the people at that point. So this might even, again, some are saying, as he said, this is kind of speaking towards the mark of the beast. You have to have certain kind of certificate or something given to you where you can buy and sell. It's what some people think it is, right? So we have that. Then we have another word in here that I want to get. 1 second here. Need to pull this up. I thought it would have been right in here. I don't have to go to 1 second. Let me stop sharing right quick. Go back. Let me bring this up right here. I thought I had both of them up, but you're going to get the other one. We're going to get to the libellus, all right? So let me come back, start sharing again. Let me check real quick. All right, no one is coming in on the club deck. All right, let me share my screen. All right, so libellus, explain. And libellus, plural, libelli, in the Roman Empire was any brief document written on individual pages as opposed to scrolls or tablets, particularly of official document issued by a government authority. The term libellus has particular historical significance for the libelli that were issued during the reign of Emperor Theseus to citizens to certify performance of required pagan sacrifices in order to demonstrate loyalty to the authority of the Roman Empire. During late periods, libelli were issued as certificates of indulgence in which the confessors or martyrs interceded to apostate Christians. Etymology: the word libellus is a Latin derivative form of a ordinary word liber, meaning book, from which we get the English word library. Literally, it means little book. Sometimes the word was used to describe what we would call essay, tracts, pamphlet, or petitions. History. During the Decian persecution in the year 250, in an attempt to promote traditional Roman Pietas, uh, that's Pietas are dealing with Roman religious practices, and and unified the Roman Empire. The Emperor Decian decreed that everyone, excepting Jews, right, must sacrifice and burn incense to the idols in the presence of a magistrate and obtain a signed document witnessed by the official attesting to this. The Libellus was the statement of the individual of his or her loyalty to the empire. The fact that they had rendered the required sacrifice plus a request for the official to co-sign as witness. 46 such certificates have been published, all dating from this time, year 250 AD. This coincides with the Decian persecution. 4 labellii were found among the thousands of papyri at the archaeological site near Oxyrhynchus in Egypt. And then you have the P.Oxy, that's what I guess that's what they're labeling it as, the addresses. It says a number of these certificates still exist, and one discovered in Egypt reads, to those in charge of the sacrifice of the village T. Adelphia from Aurelia Bilius, daughter of Patirus, and her daughter Kimpenis, we have always been constant in sacrificing to the god or idols, and now too, in your presence, in accordance with their regulations, I have poured libations and sacrifice and tasted the offering, and I ask you to certify this for us below. May you continue to prosper. Second person handwriting will be we, Aurelius Cyrenius, and Aurelius Hermes saw you sacrificing. Third person handwriting, I, Hermes, certify the first year of the Emperor Caesar Gaius Messias Quintinus Trianius Decius Pius Felix Augustus Peuni. So that's what it would read and all this. So again, this might happen in the future. As a matter of fact, this is something that's actually going on right now with this whole COVID thing, where you got to show you're vaccinated. They wanted to show you some. They want to show you some paper. Right now, this is November 5th, 2021. Right, I'm in Los Angeles, where they're making you show some certificate. I guess now they're going to the movies, going to certain restaurants, going to certain places. So they want you to see some legal document now for you to even go some places. So this coming right on point with this lesson. At the time we're going on, you need some legal paper to do certain things. Where I'm at in California, this is what you needed. I think different places may be a little bit different, but here in California, this is what the mandate is. But many people right now are rebelling against this stuff. People are leaving their jobs because of this mandate. You have to be vaccinated and so on and so forth. So for those hearing this later on in the years to come, this is what's going on in 2021 November, right? So hopefully this thing will change, but they're requiring documentation now in California to go into certain places. So I'm going to continue here. Labellii Pacius. The lapses of Carthage persuaded certain confessors of faith, right? I think I missed the part. Let me go here. Participating in pagan sacrifices was a sin for Christians and punished by excommunication. So if you did that, you was out. Because the New Testament forbade Christians to participate in idol feasts. However, not participating made one liable to arrest by the Roman authority. So you not participating, you're gonna get arrested. All right. A warrant to arrest a Christian, which is P Oxy 3035, was also found at Oxyrhynchus. This too has been dated precisely to the year 256. The grounds for this arrest was not documented. However, it predates the persecution under the Emperor Valerian by about a year. So we still have, you can get arrested for not having these for not doing this Roman stuff, this papers, right? So we have Labella Paces, a Lapsi of Carthage, persuaded certain confessors of faith who had remained faithful in the face of torture and imprisonment to send letters of recommendation in the name of the dead martyrs, Labellii Paces, letters of peace, that's what that means, to the bishop, endorsing the position that those who had lapsi, who had sacrificed to idols, be restored to communion with the church. Bishop Cyprian debated whether the threat of death penalty mitigated the sin of having communion with idols, leaving room for forgiveness and restoration to the Christian community. All right. So those that did not bow under torture and imprisonment and whatnot, send letters to those who did, trying to help them, to the people, said, and give them another chance, in other words. So that what was going on. So let me stop my screen. So we have both, right? We have Lapsi and Labellius, both of those explained. I want to go into the scriptures now. Again, a part of this lesson here is to show that Paul wasn't going to know non-Israelites. So I'm here in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 22. It says, for the Jews require a sign. The Jews are the ones that are in Judea. Like Christians read this text right here, and they read Jude and thinking that's all the entire nation of Israel. No, that's the one that's in Judea, right? The one they require a sign. I mean, they even asked Christ for a sign, right? Did they not ask Christ for a sign? When Christ told them, listen, the only sign you're going to get is the sign of Jonah. They want a sign. He says, but the Greeks seek after wisdom. See, the Greek, these are the non-Israelites. They are always seeking wisdom, trying to figure out things, and that's how they get in trouble. Testing like they're doing now with this COVID vaccine is just because a vaccine is supposed to cure you. This so-called vaccine doesn't cure you. People that is completely vaccinated are, one, still catching COVID, are, two, still spreading it, and three, still dying from it. So how is it a vaccine? So it isn't a vaccine. I don't know why it shouldn't be called a vaccine, right? So continuing, verse 23, it says, but we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews, the ones in Judea again, a stumbling block. So the ones in Judea, they're looking for the Messiah to come and liberate them from the Romans. So Paul, Peter, and James, and them coming teaching about, no, he died. That was him. He came and he died for. To them, it's a stumbling block, right? They're not going to understand that. They don't get that, right? That's the cause of error for them because of carnal thinking. They thinking carnally. No, he's not supposed to die. He was to come liberate us. So when they're teaching that, to them, it's a stumbling block for them. They fall at that teaching to understand they got to die first. It says, and unto the Greeks, foolishness. Again, these are non-Israelites. But to the Greeks, foolishness. How is teaching to non-Israelites who have no connection to the Messiah and the Old Testament prophecies about him coming and liberating Israel? What's that to them? That's a bunch of foolishness to them because they're seeking after wisdom. That to them ain't wisdom because he's coming to save Israelites, not everybody. So to them, that's foolishness to you. So someone come to save y'all came and he actually didn't save you, he died. That's a bunch of foolishness to them, right? It wouldn't be foolishness to those dispersed abroad because he came for them too as well. I'm gonna show that. I'm gonna show that too, right? Verse 24, it says, but unto them which are called, which is the key phrase here in this verse, them are called, both of the Jews, the ones that's in Judea, and of the Greeks. Now, these are Israelites. I'm gonna prove it. Let me get to the proving point. I'm gonna prove these Greeks right here because of the context of the scripture of the first part where it says to them that are called. It says, Christ, the Messiah, the power of God, and also the wisdom of God. Let me prove that these Jews, these Greeks here are Israelite, because the key phrase here is to them that are called. So if the called are only Israelites, then these Greeks would have to be Israelites. I'm going to prove that the only ones that are called are Israelites. When we come to the book of Romans, just jump a book back, doing to the same writer. I'm not even switching authors or writers. I'm going back to the same writer. I'm jumping a one book back to Romans, coming to the 8th chapter. I'm going to read verse 29 and verse 30. Romans chapter 8, verse 29. For whom he did foreknew, we knew who he did foreknew. That's Israel. That's Israelites, right? That's Amos chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Right? It says, he also predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. So the ones who he foreknew, he predestinated them to be conformed to the image of his son, so that Christ might be a firstborn among what? Many brethren. So Christ is just the first that's going to be conformed into the image of God, like Christ was, the image of his son, which is the image of the Most High. Verse 30, he said, moreover, whom he did predestinate, which we know are them who he foreknew, which we know those are only Israelites, right? It says, them he also called. See, so the ones that he foreknew, the one that did predestinate, are just the ones that he called. These are only Israelites. It says, and whom he called, who are only Israelites, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he glorified, meaning giving salvation. So when you go back to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 24, it says, but to them which are called, these are only Israelites. So when it says to the Jews and to the Greeks, then these Greeks here would have to be Israelites dispersed amongst the Greeks, calling themselves Greeks. Whereas the scriptures also call them Grecians, Greek-speaking Jews. All right, so we have that. Okay, so now let me go and show you where Christ only came for the Israelites. I'm going to jump up to the book of St. John's. I'm going to get chapter 11. I'm going to get start at verse 49 down. So this is St. John's chapter 11, verse 49. It says, and one of them named Caiaphas, being high priest the same year, said unto them, ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus, mentioned him by name, right, Yahushua, should die for that nation. He died for one people. So this is the high priest saying he's dying for a nation, not that he's dying for everybody on the earth. He's saying he's dying for that nation. This is what the high priest is saying. So where's the high priest getting this information from? Is he just talking inside of his neck? Where's he getting this information from? Verse 52 says, and not for that nation only. So it doesn't stop there. It says, but that he should gather together in one, right? Just bring the two sticks together in Ezekiel. That's what, Ezekiel 37. In one, the children of God that were scattered abroad. So now you have the ones in Judea where he came to them. And then what about the one dispersed abroad? So you have to go ahead and get the one that dispersed abroad and bring them into one again, into one stick, as is prophesied in Ezekiel. This is what Christ says that he has to do. Right? Continuing here. 1 second. I think I missed the part where it says, verse 51. It says, and this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied. The point I wanted to make. See, he get this. He's prophesying. This information comes from heaven. Prophecy comes from heaven. So he's prophesying that Jesus by name should die for that nation. So this information is coming from heaven. So you can't be saying that he's wrong. So heaven is telling us Christ died just for one nation of people and not for the entire earth. So you have to be misunderstanding this same book, St. John's 3:16. St. John 3:16 cannot mean he died for everybody on the earth, because this would contradict this verse right here, which comes straight from heaven through the high priest, who said he should die for that nation. It should be consistent where, well, he died for everybody right here, but it's different. This is saying one nation. So that world in St. John 3:16 would have to be Israel because that's how the writer of the book of St. John is using the word world in different places when you read the book of St. John. He's using it like that. I think he used it in St. John's 8:32. He uses it like that in different places. He uses it like that as well. Right? It says, okay, and I think I finished that. It says for 3, and then from that day, they took counsel together for to put him to death. So we have that. So I'm just showing you that Christ came for one nation of people. He got to gather the one that dispersed abroad, which because he came, died, resurrected, and left. So who did he send out to go gather the ones that are dispersed abroad? He sent out the apostles. The apostles is doing this part of the mission of the Messiah, and that's how they're coming into be one body. So his body here, that's on Christ, meaning the believers in him, they're fulfilling the other part of the mission that he has to gather together the children of God that were scattered abroad. So that's still him doing it because they're called his body. So it's literally like him still doing it, but through his believers in the church. I mean, to the believers in him in the church, right? So I think that is it. Let me come out. Let me stop sharing and come back. I think I clearly finished. I think I covered every single thing here, and I'm still again live on the StreamYard as well. So I think I broke everything down here. So I'm gonna continue. I'm going to continue on the Clubhouse Club deck. And I'm gonna end the broadcast here, streaming to YouTube on my channel here. Because I've been in here for just like 48 minutes. I'm gonna make sure I did not leave anything out. I think I covered all the information in the video, all the explanation here. Everything should be covered. All right, so let me end the broadcast here. Again, thank everyone for listening. That's going to listen. Any questions? Just leave it in the comment section. I will respond to it. Again, I want to say Shabbat Shalom to those that's going to listen to this lesson later on. Hopefully, I said something to edify you, help you with your walk, with your belief in what you're doing. One more thing, forgot. Let me share my screen for this right here. Turn my camera on for this one. Come on back. All right, so I want to show you, got my new book of Epistle of James, translated from the Hebrew, right? Just came in today, translated from the Hebrew, right? So I'm about to go through this book right here and see what it says from the Hebrew translation. And I'm gonna do a class on this book right here, on this information here. Whatever comes out here that's changing what we have from the Greek manuscripts, what do we have from the Hebrew manuscripts. So the Epistle of James, Yaakov, a translation from the Hebrew, because they have found the entire New Testament in Hebrew. The entire book is in Hebrew. All right, so let me show it again so you can see it. The Epistle of James, translated from the Hebrew, right? That just came. Of course, that is not James in the picture, because James is a so-called black man. Right? So we have that here. I can't wait to get into this book to find out exactly what is going to come out of this book. I'm going to open it up, give you a quick look at what it looks like. I want to get the focus on it. But that's kind of what we look like right there. Let me come back. This thing might lose focus, but that's how it looks. You know what I'm saying? You got some Hebrew there. So I'm going to get into this book, bring out the information in here already. I heard some good information in here. So hopefully by next Shabbat, I'm going to have went through this book and bring out the information on this book right here. All right. So with that, I'm about to close it out and turn my camera off. Again, thank everyone for listening. Any question, again, leave it in the comments. You did in the comment section, and I will respond to this. So with that, Shabbat Shalom.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Thank you for joining us.
All praises to the Most High God Yahweh, meaning He is, I am, or causes to be, and His only begotten Son, Hamashiach Hawashai, or Christ Jesus in English, which means Anointed Savior. Please join us again. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, Israel.
Now you know.